What's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Today we've got a good one because we're going to be talking about the best third-party developers on the Nintendo Switch, publishers, developers, all that kind of mixed in. You guys will see with these comments here. But before we get into that, guys, please make sure you hit that like button and also subscribe if you're someone new. Now, on my community page, I asked you guys, who is your favorite third-party developer on the Nintendo Switch that has actually supported the system with multiple titles? Please make sure you vote, comment, all of that good stuff. I'll be doing a video on it, and here we are at this point. But I made a couple of mistakes, which the comments definitely cleared up, or at least shed light to some of those. One, in my draft, I meant to put Capcom instead of Sega at the bottom of the list there when I was listing up the different ones. And two, I put developers. I probably should have put publishers on there because some of you guys actually picked out individual developers that had games published by someone else, because a lot of you guys picked out developers who make games but then are published by someone else, but then giving that developer or publisher tie back to the company the credit for it. So it was very interesting. So we're going to have another poll where I'm going to go over and I'm going to rectify some of these mistakes by one, saying about the publisher, and two, we're going to go ahead and give a face-off between Square Enix and also between Capcom, because a lot of you guys were like, Capcom in the comments, which we'll get into pretty much here, guys, and then we'll talk about what I think about this poll here and the third-party support on the Nintendo Switch with these publishers. So let's first start off at the bottom here. We have NIS Falcom with the E-Series Trails of Cold Steel at 8%. Next up, or pretty much tied, is Koei Tecmo with Samurai Warriors Ninja Gaiden at 8%. After that, we've got Bandai Namco. They have Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Tales of Vesperia. They're at 9%. Now, with a huge gap, I have Sega, or more like a bigger gap here. I have Sega, which Persona 5 Strikers, Shin Megami Tensei, etc., or other. That should have been Capcom as well, but a lot of you guys were having Capcom, so that's 17%, pretty much for Capcom, although there were a number of people that were talking about Sega and what they do too. And then at number one, by far, there was a large amount of people who said Square Enix, 59%. This poll had over 4.6 thousand votes on it, and to have 59%, so over 2,000 people say, nope, it is Square Enix by far. That is very interesting to see, and of course, I'm going to give my thoughts on that. But before we get into all of that, guys, I want to make sure that I give some of you guys some shout outs for taking the time to answer in this poll. Remember, guys, if you vote in our polls and you put a comment, you could get your comment read on a video. So thank you guys so much for coming out to this. So let's start off with Grinning Wolf Games. He says, Capcom, sure, they have messed gamers around with expensive digital copies, but they have supported the console with a lot of their IP like Resident Evil and Okami. Next up is Kelsey De Sa, says, DQ, Final Fantasy 20, Mana, Octopath, Bravely, and more. Square has supported the Switch easily the most. However, Capcom is about to give the Switch Monster Hunter Rise, Stories 2, RE Outrage, and Ace Attorney 7. So it'll be interesting to see who people think is the top dog next year. Very good comment on that. Capcom is coming in strong this year. Square Enix has been doing a lot of great stuff. I think it's a good showdown, which we will have. Once again, there's a poll that you guys can all go vote on. We're going to do another one on here, guys. Next up is Mr. Edward Outcast, and he says, I'm inclined to say Capcom right now, even if the old games are overpriced, and in quotation marks there. Next up is Shay, and they say Platinum for Bayonetta games and Astral Chain, and Capcom for Monster Hunter, Okami, and RE on other platforms. Square is a close third for Dragon Quest and Octopath Traveler. Okay, got some interesting takes on that one. Next up is Bikosaurus, and says Koei Tecmo for me, the best Switch support. Let's go over this list here, guys. Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Age of Calamity, Fire Emblem 3 Houses, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Samurai Warriors, Ninja Gaiden, Dynasty Warriors, Atelier Series, Attack on Titan, Fairy Tail, Persona 5 Strikers. So this is interesting because this person is putting the developer themselves, even though Koei Tecmo is also a publisher, and giving them credit for games that were funded by other publishers. So technically this is like right and wrong. I mean, it's like on the borderline here because that's Nintendo with a lot of this stuff, right? Like Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, Age of Calamity, although Koei Tecmo makes it It's not necessarily with their support since Nintendo's funding it. Same thing goes with Persona 5 Strikers. That is a Sega game, so it's more like they get the support or they get the credit for that, even though Koei Tecmo made it. It's interesting, but that's the reason why I made a mistake. I have to next time put publisher on there. Otherwise, we're going to get people who try to give credit to some of these developers who didn't fund it. Marvel Ultimate Alliance, once again, Nintendo funded that one too. So interesting take, but at the same time, I will allow it. Koei Tecmo's still been really good. You know, Koei Tecmo does develop those games. Next up, we're going to get to another comment here, guys. And Josh Erweiler says, NIS has some amazing collector's editions. They also have put out full color manuals in many of their games I've bought recently. And that is absolutely true. I wanted to read this one out because someone's kind of giving credit to the underdog here, NIS, with their support. Yeah, they have some really good collector's editions. So very cool stuff there, man. So also Mr. Matt R says, I voted other for Capcom. I enjoyed several games in their backlog for the first time. Okami, Ace Attorney, not to mention RE, Dragon's Dogma, and Monster Hunter. Absolutely. So a lot of you guys are definitely on this Capcom train here, and we're going to talk about this, guys, because once again, we are going to have, or already have, a poll link in the description for Capcom versus Square Enix. It seems like those are the two big showdowns here that we need to get to next. So I want to first talk about what I think about this whole poll. To me, Square Enix is by far the best developer slash publisher on the Nintendo Switch right now with support, because I feel that not only are there old games coming over, right? They've brought over all of the Final Fantasy games. They've brought over just so much stuff. They've brought over so many different types of games. We have Dragon Quest, right? They brought over some of the old ones there. They've got a new Dragon Quest game on the Nintendo Switch, which they did back in like, what, 2019 for that game or something, right? So a very good version of Dragon Quest 11S. Plus, you also have stuff like The World Ends With You, right? They brought over that game originally, and of course, the sequel's coming over as well. So you have new games, you have old games, you've got custom-made Switch games like Bravely Default, for example. I mean, it is pretty impressive. Stuff like Octopath Traveler as well. I mean, it just goes on and on when it comes to Square Enix. They've done some great stuff. Trials of Mana is fantastic as well when it comes to like bringing back a classic and remaking an Unreal Engine, plus bringing over the original games with Collection of Mana. Man, they have done a great job. Now, I will say, in my opinion at this point, right, before we get to the showdown, and I get your thoughts on this, Capcom is also good. I think Capcom is surging at the right time. I think Capcom is coming into the fray at the right time. That's why I love Kelsey Desai's comment and saying it's going to be interesting to see what people think next year. Not necessarily this year, but after Stories 2 comes out, because that game's going to be a banger. After Monster Hunter Rise comes out, that is this month, that's going to be a banger. After some of these big Resident Evil, right, that's going to be like a timed exclusive or something that's going to be coming out for the Switch. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see because Capcom is throwing haymakers in 2021. Now, Square Enix has been throwing body blows and haymakers pretty much all gen when it comes to Nintendo, right? When it comes to Nintendo Switch, they've been doing a good job. We got Octopath in the second year of the Nintendo Switch, which is a big, very highly rated game. And then, of course, Bravely Default 2 just dropped. That's also a haymaker as well. We've got some great stuff from them, but I think it's going to be very interesting to see what people think next year. But Capcom, they've been doing a good job, but it's interesting because Capcom was in the same position that Sega's kind of in right now in terms of what people think. Like, hey, you're not doing enough. You know, there needs to be more. Where's my Persona? Where's this and that? People were saying that about Capcom in 2017, in 2018, in 2019 when it comes to Switch support. But now Capcom, obviously, they see what's going on. They've been developing their games. It's been taking some time. And the attitude has somewhat switched with them. And it's kind of all shifted towards Sega when it comes to give me my Persona on the Nintendo Switch. So it's interesting to see some of these companies go through phases and everything. Heck, you can even talk about Falcom, for example. People were very angry that they weren't bringing over their games and what the president was saying then. So it's interesting just to see these type of dynamic shifts between what the fans think about it. And that's why these polls are so good, to get your thoughts on what is going on here, man. So it's very cool to see. And once again, this is great to talk about it as someone who loves video games, and I know you guys love the different type of support that's coming. But I still think, you know, when it comes to Capcom and when it comes to Square Enix, man, to me, Square Enix, they are definitely the top dog at this point. But like I said, there's some good stuff brewing with Capcom. We've got some great games going as well, so it's very cool to see that. But I've been having a ton of fun with Square Enix games. I mean, I know for me, Bravely Default 2, Octopath Traveler, these are some of the best games that I've played, best RPGs that I've played in recent memory. Also stuff like Dragon Quest XI-S was phenomenal. We have to give credit where credit is due. Those games are absolutely amazing, and Square Enix has been pumping them out on Switch when it comes to big new games on the platform almost every single year. And that whole Final Fantasy drop where they put all the different Final Fantasies on there, that was just amazing as well, man. So it's just great to see. It's great to see, and hopefully this continues. I think it will. I mean, I think the Switch is rising. There's more people that are getting even into it more. There's obviously the rumors about the Nintendo Switch revision that's going to add some power, so you're going to be able to play maybe some of these games in better resolutions and they'll look better, so we can go back and check out some of these games. I know I'm playing Bravely Default 2 right now with an M cable, and it absolutely looks better and sharper on the TV in dock mode. I can only imagine if they bring out this like revision and it even gets a little bit more of a bump as well when you're playing in TV or dock mode, or even in the portable mode with a cleaner screen, if the rumors are true with an OLED, man. So I think that the Switch is going to keep rising. I think a lot of you guys are going to keep playing these games and keep trying out some new stuff, and it's great to see these developers and these publishers work together with Nintendo to bring over a lot of this great stuff. And I think we're just getting started here, man. This is just getting started when it comes to great games coming over, especially for 2021. So what do you guys think when it comes to the best third-party publishers slash developers on the Nintendo Switch platform? And remember, guys, make sure you vote in the other poll that we have below. We have the showdown versus Capcom and Square Enix. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Check out the links in the description. We've got Twitter. Go and give us a follow on there. Stay up to date on all latest gaming news and information. Also, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video if you can. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you for the next one. Peace.